Hi, when engaging in a coaching conversation, I want to invite you to avoid the three common mistakes we actually make a lot, which are you are not really listening, you are being distracted, and maybe you are jumping too soon into giving your opinion or your advice. So now, let me tell you how to avoid them. Mistake number one, as I mentioned, you are not really listening. The question is, how can you identify if you are active listening or not? Suggestion that I usually do, listen to yourself. Are you mentally engaging in the conversation, or are you thinking about what you might say when the person goes quiet? Or you might have a thought or maybe a question is stuck in your head, and that's where your attention is. Two things I like to do to avoid this common behavior. The very first one, I like to set my intention around the conversation we are having. And I do that by mentally asking myself, what am I here to do? And I mentally answer my own question by saying something like, I'm here to listen, so please, let's pay attention. It's like there are little voices in my head. The second one is when a thought or a question is stuck in my head. When that happens, I write one, maybe or two words down. These would be key words that will help me remember the thought or the question I want to ask. When I do that, I am usually in a much better position to actively listen, pay attention, and engage at a much, much deeper level. The second mistake is when you are not really present. To avoid this one, I do something very similar to my first example. I set my intention by mentally asking myself, what am I here to do? And then, of course, I answer myself with thoughts like, I'm here to have a conversation, so please, let's be present. It's like there are people talking in my head, and actually there are, we have those voices and we have to engage with them. The second one is to avoid distraction. If your phone is a distraction, which in my case it is, I make sure it is muted and always face down. The third one, if you are in a room where there are people walking by, you can turn sideways so you don't face the people who are walking by. That usually helps you be less distracted. At least in my case it does. But by the way, there is another one that just came to my mind, which in my case takes my sense of presence sometimes completely away, which is when I do not have the time the person needs, or the person is going on forever in the conversation and I'm thinking to myself, man, I need to go. I don't have time for this right now. In that case, of course, I don't want to be rude, but I want to be respectful of my time and also my appointments. And I want to give the proper attention to the person. When that happens, I usually say how long I have, and I offer to find time on our calendars right away. So the time is better for both of us. I even added, I want to show you, I even added a little QR code you see on my calendar, on my business card, and this QR code takes people to my calendar. So that way they can find a better time for us to talk. And sometimes I can even mention how long I have. When you need to mention how long you have, you can say, or I say something like this, in the 10 minutes we have, how can we best use our time together? And then, of course, I offer my calendar for the person to find a better times that will work for both of us. The third mistake is when you give your advice or suggestion way too soon into the conversation. I have to say, this is by far the most common and yet the most important one. If you are a manager and someone from your teams comes asking you a question, your first instinct is what? Is to tell them what to do. Tell them how to solve it. Or let's say maybe you have a kid and your kid comes to you asking you how to do something. And what do? You jump and do it for them. In a coaching conversation, I have to say this is highly problematic, because you should want your people to make decisions for themselves and take risks, right? If you want a parent, what do you want? You want your kid to learn how to solve problems, be creative, and of course be solution oriented. But guess what? Reality is that mindset must be developed. It does not happen by accident. It happens by design. And in this case, you are the designer. So my suggestion is wait to give your opinion and your advice more towards the end of the conversation. I want you to remember that I'm not telling you not to give your opinion, not to give your advice. People want to know what you think and sometimes how you would handle things. They want your experience, and maybe that's why they come to you. What I'm asking you is to hold off a little longer and engage in a conversation of exploration. Help the person or help the people find their own solutions and actions. And then, of course, after that exploration, if you think that your advice or your opinion would add value, so please go ahead and do it. But first, remember to explore the possibilities and also explore some ownership. Because at the end of the day, most of the times, what you want is to make people take action. When we do that, we help people around us develop a growth mindset. And that is by design. That is the design we are talking about. I do believe and I know that coaching conversations are everywhere. And I hope you have some fun using these strategies. They are simple, yet I know they are very powerful. If you enjoyed this video and found this content valuable, I would love to hear from you. Maybe here in the comments you can share what you applied and how you applied this video. And maybe you can even share with me your story. Thank you so much for watching, and please remember to share the love. See you next time. Bye-bye.